Welcome back to the Calm Storyteller. Tonight, we travel back in time, not through wars or inventions that changed the world, but through something much softer, something that has cradled every human head since civilization began. The pillow. It seems so ordinary, a simple cushion under our necks, a quiet object of comfort. Yet behind this humble thing lies a story older than history itself. A story about how we, as humans, have always sought one simple dream: to rest. This journey is not about kings or battles, it's about nights and mornings, about the soft place between wakefulness and sleep. It's about the ways we have, across thousands of years, tried to make that passage just a little more gentle. So tonight, as you lie down, close your eyes and listen. Imagine yourself not in your bed, but in 1,000 beds through time. Beds of stone, of straw, of silk, of memory foam. Each one telling a small part of who we are. Let's begin where rest itself began. Chapter 1. The first pillows, stone and status in Mesopotamia. Our story begins long ago, more than 9,000 years past, in a world cradled between two rivers that shimmered beneath the sun. The Tigris and the Euphrates, lifelines of Mesopotamia, a place where humankind first learned to shape the earth, to sow seed into soil, and to call a single patch of land home. Before this time, our ancestors wandered. They slept beneath open skies, their bodies curled close to one another for warmth. Their pillows were the earth itself, the crook of an arm, a patch of moss, a folded animal hide. But something was changing. The world was settling. Villages began to form along the riverbanks. Crops rose and fell with the seasons, clay pots filled with grain, and within the mud brick walls of these first homes, people began to wonder, not just how to live, but how to rest. It is here, among the dust and reeds of early civilization, that the first true pillows were born. They were not soft, not warm, not even welcoming. They were hard, carved from stone, shaped from wood, sometimes even cast from bronze. The first pillows were cool beneath the skin, unyielding against the weight of a head. Yet to the Mesopotamians, they were precious. Archaeologists today have uncovered these ancient relics, small, curved supports, barely the length of a forearm. Some are smooth, others etched with intricate lines, symbols of ownership or devotion. When held in the hand, they feel more like miniature sculptures than objects of rest. To lie upon one was not to seek softness, it was to seek status. A pillow in ancient Mesopotamia was a privilege. Only the wealthy, the merchants whose caravans carried lapis and copper, the priests who read the stars, the nobles who spoke with kings, could afford such an object. The poor slept low to the ground, their heads resting on bundles of reeds or on folded shawls that smelled faintly of smoke and sweat. But the elite lifted their heads high upon pedestals of wood and stone. That elevation was not just physical, it was spiritual. To raise one's head was to rise above the dust. To be lifted from the earth, even in sleep, was to be closer to the divine. Imagine now the city of at twilight. The air hums with warmth, the scent of clay and river water fills the streets. Torches flicker against walls carved with stories of gods and kings. In the upper quarter, where the ziggurat rises like a staircase to heaven, a noble returns to his chamber. His home is quiet, a luxury in itself. Reed mats line the floor, woven with care. A small oil lamp burns beside a low bed of woven rope and hide. And there, Beside it rests his pillow, a headrest of polished wood, curved just so to fit the shape of his neck. He kneels beside it for a moment, whispering a prayer to Nana, god of the moon. Then he lies back. His head lifts slightly, cradled by the smooth curve of wood. The air, still heavy from the day's heat, cools against his skin. Outside, the city murmurs. Donkeys bray, merchants shout one last bargain. The river boats creak against their moorings. But in this chamber, there is silence, and for a moment, the nobleman feels as though he floats above the earth. That is what a pillow meant. To rise, to be held aloft, to be more than flesh, pressed into dust. Even the gods were given pillows. In Sumerian temples, statues of kings and deities reclined upon small pedestals carved beneath their heads, sacred headrests meant to echo the divine rest of heaven. To elevate the head was to honor the soul, and so every sleep became a ritual, a miniature act of transcendence. But these early pillows were not only symbols of faith, they were also tools of fear. Mesopotamians believed the night was alive with unseen spirits, shadows that drifted between the walls, creatures that slipped through dreams. To sleep flat upon the ground was to open the self to them, but to lift the head, even by a few inches, was to create distance, a small barrier between body and spirit. The higher you rested, the safer your soul. Now picture another home, smaller, humbler, along the riverbank. A farmer's wife tends the hearth, her hands rough from grinding grain. Her children sleep on woven mats, their breaths soft and uneven in the night. She has no carved stone pillow. Her head will rest upon a rolled cloth, perhaps stuffed with straw. But she glances, through the open doorway, toward the distant city where the nobles sleep. She knows of the wooden headrests they use. She's seen them, in passing, carried through the market, symbols of wealth and station. For a moment, she wonders what it would feel like. To lift her head just a little higher, to be held by something shaped and cared for. To rest, not just from exhaustion, but from purpose. That thought, small as it is the spark of something new. The desire for comfort. It begins not with abundance, but with imagination. Across Mesopotamia, these headrests took on many forms. Some were smooth, others decorated with patterns of animals or celestial signs. Some carried inscriptions, prayers for protection during sleep. One surviving headrest bears markings that translate to a simple wish: may sleep be pure and dreams be clear. It's such a gentle thing to find carved into stone, proof that even in an age of hardship, people longed for peace. They didn't yet think of sleep as we do, as recovery or luxury, but as a sacred voyage. Each night they believed the soul wandered the dream world, touching the realm of gods and ancestors. And so, to rest one's head upon a pillow was to prepare for that journey, the first ritual act before leaving the waking world behind. The pillow was the bridge. In the royal palace, the artisans who carved these objects worked by lamplight, shaping curves from blocks of limestone or cedar. Their tools were simple: chisels, stones, bits of sand. But the intention behind each motion was divine. One artisan, perhaps nameless now, runs his hand along the smooth curve of his creation. He knows this headrest is for a nobleman, perhaps even a priest. He polishes the surface until it gleams. Then, carefully, he carves a line of cuneiform across the edge, a blessing, a hope that the sleeper's dreams will be touched by mercy. The air smells of dust and oil. Outside, the moon rises over the ziggurat, casting pale light through the workshop door. The artisan leans back, tired but proud. He does not own a pillow himself, but he has created one that will cradle another man's head, and that, in some quiet way, connects him to the mystery of sleep. For even the maker dreams through his craft. By now, pillows were not only for nobles. Temples began to include them in rituals and offerings. Miniature stone headrests were placed beside figurines of gods, as though even divinity required repose. And as these symbols spread, so too did the belief that sleep was a sacred state, a time when the body rested, but the spirit traveled. In clay tablets found near ancient Lagash, inscriptions describe the rest of kings, where the sleeper is said to rise in the dream to speak with the divine. Some even claimed that prophecies came in dreams sent through the purity of one's sleep. To dream well, therefore, required order. The body must be clean, the head elevated, the chamber still. A pillow was no longer just an accessory. It was part of a philosophy. Sleep well, dream clearly, rise renewed. Let's return, just once more, to that noble's chamber in Ur. The lamp burns low. He shifts slightly, the curved headrest supporting his neck just so. It isn't comfortable by our standards. The wood presses firm against his skin, but it feels right. The shape of the pillow lifts him from the ground, gives him dignity even in rest. He dreams, perhaps of the gods, perhaps of the harvest, perhaps of nothing at all. Outside, the wind sighs against clay walls. A servant stirs the coals to keep them alive till morning. Somewhere beyond the city, the river murmurs, carrying its endless song toward the sea. And there, in that quiet moment, we can almost trace the beginning of something vast. This is where the story of comfort begins. From these early stones and wooden rests, humanity learned that rest itself could be shaped, improved, softened. The pillow would travel far from Mesopotamia, changing form with every culture it touched. But its purpose would remain the same: to lift the head, to cradle the spirit, to whisper, "You may rest now." So tonight, when you lie down and your pillow welcomes you with softness, think of that first sleeper in Ur. Think of the cold curve of stone beneath his cheek and the quiet triumph of having made something that separated him, even slightly, from the dust. For that is where it all began, the first dream of comfort, the first whisper of care. And from that whisper, humanity would learn, over centuries, how to dream softer still. Chapter 2: Egypt's Carved Rest, Dreams of the Afterlife. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the slow whisper of desert wind against sandstone. The sun has long dipped beneath the horizon, leaving behind a deep orange glow that lingers on the edge of eternity. We are in ancient Egypt, a land where the sands hold secrets older than memory, and where even sleep, that most human of acts, was given divine meaning. The pillow, as we might call it today, was already known here, but the Egyptians didn't call it that. To them, it was a headrest, a curved cradle, often carved from stone, wood, or ivory, and it was not designed for softness. No, it was meant to lift, to protect, to preserve. The Egyptians believed that the head was sacred, the seat of life, the throne of the soul. To cradle it, even in slumber, was to honor the spirit that resided within. Sleep itself was not just rest, it was a rehearsal for eternity. Imagine the hands of a craftsman. He sits beneath the dim glow of an oil lamp in the city of Thebes. The flame flickers, dancing on the walls of his workshop. He is shaping a small block of limestone, smoothing its edges, curving it carefully to cradle the neck of someone he will never meet. He murmurs a prayer to Ptah, god of creation and craftsmen. Each scrape of his chisel echoes softly. Every mark he makes is guided by reverence. This headrest is not merely furniture, it is a vessel of meaning. So, when completed, it will be polished until it gleams in the torchlight. Perhaps it will be inlaid with faience or carved with sacred hieroglyphs, the eye of Horus for protection, the Ankh for life eternal. Or maybe it will bear the image of Bes, the squat, lion-faced god who guards sleepers from nightmares. For the Egyptians, sleep was a mysterious crossing, a nightly voyage between worlds. To sleep was to enter the Duat, the realm of dreams and spirits, where one might encounter ancestors, gods, or even glimpse the afterlife. And so the headrest, called Wesesh, meaning to lift up, was more than a tool. It was a promise, a symbol of resurrection, of rising again. When placed beneath the head of the deceased, it was meant to help the soul awaken in the next world, to lift the head toward the light of eternity. In grand tombs beneath the desert sands, we find them still, small curved supports tucked beneath mummified heads. Some made of simple limestone, others of gleaming alabaster or carved ebony, adorned with delicate inlays of turquoise. Beside them lie amulets and jars, the Book of the Dead etched on papyrus, and sometimes a small inscription, a spell or blessing to ensure safe passage into the afterlife. One inscription, found on a headrest in Saqqara, reads, "May your head be lifted by the gods. May your eyes see the dawn once more." What a tender wish that is, to imagine that even in death, one's comfort mattered. But comfort, as we understand it today, was not the Egyptian goal. No, their world was shaped by symbolism, not sensation. A curved wooden support beneath the neck, leaving the head suspended in air. This was not for ease, but for spiritual hygiene. Elevation was purity. To raise the head was to guard it from dust, insects, or the creeping touch of impurity. And perhaps, too, to remind the sleeper that their spirit was destined to rise, not sink. Let's wander softly through an Egyptian home. The year is roughly 1500 BCE. A wealthy scribe has just extinguished his oil lamp. The desert outside hums faintly with the sound of wind through palm fronds. He reclines on a woven mat of papyrus. Beside him lies a carved wooden headrest, smooth and polished. He positions it carefully under his neck. The curved cradle catches the nape of his head, firm, supportive, unyielding. At first it feels cool. Then, as his body settles, it begins to warm. His eyes close, and he drifts. In his dreams, he might see the Nile, vast and silver beneath the moon. Or he might walk in the fields of reeds, where the souls of the righteous dwell in peace, the Egyptian paradise, green and eternal. His head lifted toward heaven, his spirit gently raised up, just as the word Wesesh promised. Now imagine another scene. Deep within the Valley of the Kings, the burial of a noble woman is underway. Priests chant hymns to Osiris. The air is thick with incense. Her sarcophagus gleams with gold leaf, and beneath her wrapped linen head, a small ivory headrest. Her family believed she would awaken in the next life as the dawn broke in eternity, that she would rise, her head lifted, eyes open to the light of Ra, the sun god. Even in death, the Egyptians dreamed of waking. You can almost feel the paradox, can't you? That the Egyptians, masters of art, of beauty, of architecture, who built wonders of stone and gold, chose hardness for their sleep. It tells us something profound. They were not chasing comfort. They were seeking meaning. They saw in the firmness of stone not discomfort, but stability, permanence, the same quality that built pyramids and shaped eternity. Still, not all slept upon ivory and limestone. Common folk, the farmers and fishermen along the Nile, made their own simple headrests from wood, clay, or woven reeds. A father might carve one for his child, smoothing its edges with care. Even if humble, it served the same purpose, to raise the head, to keep the dreams pure. And isn't that something universal? Even across millennia, that impulse to cradle the head, to make rest a little kinder, to protect the fragile boundary between waking and dreaming. Now let's journey into a tomb. The air is still and cool. Our torchlight glimmers across walls painted with scenes of harvests and journeys through the underworld. In the corner, a wooden chest, inside it, a headrest, carved in the likeness of a lotus flower. The lotus, symbol of rebirth, of the sun's daily awakening. When the flower opens, light returns. When it closes, night reigns. To rest one's head upon such a symbol was to merge with the rhythm of creation itself. Even the gods were depicted with headrests. Statues of sleeping deities show small pedestals beneath their heads. In myth, it was said that the god Shu, who held up the sky, rested his divine head upon a mountain, the earth's first pillow. So, the Egyptians were not far off in their poetry. They simply carved that mountain into something they could hold. Over the centuries, the design of the headrest evolved little, which tells us that the Egyptians saw it as already perfect. To them, a curved rest beneath the neck was the ideal form, simple, eternal, symbolic, and yet in this firmness, a new idea was slowly forming. The idea that rest, the quality of rest, mattered. That sleep could be made sacred. That even the stillness of the night could reflect the values of a civilization. And in that idea, something quietly revolutionary began to stir. Because as Egypt's dynasties flourished and fell, as temples rose and sands buried cities, the concept of the pillow began to travel. Merchants along the Red Sea carried goods to faraway lands, spices, papyrus, ivory, and with them, ideas. One of those ideas was the headrest, that small, graceful curve designed to lift the head and honor the soul. Some would adapt it, some would soften it, but its meaning, the wish to bring peace to rest, would endure. From Egypt's tombs and temples, the story of the pillow began its long journey eastward, toward lands of silk and porcelain, where rest would soon take on a new, more tender shape. And so, as we leave the cool silence of Egypt's tombs, we carry with us this vision, a simple curve of wood, supporting the head of a dreamer. Not soft, but sacred. Not for comfort, but for eternity. And in that act of lifting, of protecting, of preparing the soul for dawn, the Egyptians unknowingly began to shape what sleep would mean for all of human history. This was not the age of comfort yet, but it was the age of reverence. And from reverence comes love. And from love, in time, comes gentleness. The world was learning to sleep, and the pillow, the humble headrest of carved stone, was its first lullaby. Sleep well, Egypt, for your dreams will travel far. Chapter 3: The Soft Revolution, China's Silk and Porcelain Pillows. Far to the east, beyond deserts, beyond mountains, where rivers shimmer like threads of silver beneath the moon, a new dream of rest was beginning to take shape. This was China, a land where philosophy, art, and invention were already intertwined like silk itself. And here, long before the word comfort became universal, people began to wonder, what if sleep could be beautiful? It was the Tang Dynasty, an age of golden poetry and vibrant trade. The Silk Road pulsed with life, camels laden with spices and scrolls and shimmering fabrics. And in the midst of this world, something quiet yet revolutionary was happening in the most intimate of places, the bedroom. The pillow, once a hard support of wood or stone, was slowly transforming into an object of luxury, philosophy, and care. Unlike the Egyptians or Mesopotamian headrests, symbols of rank or ritual, the Chinese pillow began to serve a new purpose: to comfort the living, not just honor the dead. At first, Chinese pillows were still firm, made from bronze, bamboo, or lacquered wood. They were practical, keeping the head cool in the humid summers of the East. But as silk weaving flourished, and paper, porcelain, and poetry all bloomed together, a new era of rest emerged, one that sought harmony between body and soul. Let us travel for a moment to a scholar's study along the banks of the Yangtze River. It is late in the evening. Rain taps gently against the wooden shutters. Inside, a small oil lamp flickers beside a pile of scrolls. The scholar has been writing for hours, ink stains on his fingers, eyes weary. He sets down his brush, exhales softly, and removes his scholar's cap. His robe slides from his shoulders with a whisper, and there, at the edge of his resting mat, waits his porcelain pillow. It is smooth, cool, and slightly curved, painted with a scene of plum blossoms and flowing water. He lowers his head gently upon it. The porcelain sighs against his skin, cold at first, then gradually warm. Outside, the world hums with night sounds, crickets in the grass, frogs calling to one another. The lamp flickers, and as his breath slows, he drifts into a dream. His pillow bears an inscription, written in delicate brushstrokes. To sleep is to meet the self once more. How beautiful that is! For in Chinese thought, dreams were not meaningless wanderings. They were journeys, meetings of the inner world and the cosmic one. To dream was to understand one's heart more deeply, and thus the pillow, the very vessel of that dreaming, became sacred. During the Tang and Song dynasties, pillows became both practical objects and pieces of art. They were molded into elegant shapes: tigers, fish, lotus flowers, children. Each form carried its own symbolism: a tiger for strength and protection, a fish for abundance and prosperity, a child for fertility and joy. Even the colors had meanings. A green porcelain pillow might invite renewal, a white one, purity, a gold-threaded silk pillow, wealth and divine blessing. The wealthy elite filled their sleeping chambers with embroidered silk cushions stuffed with cotton, kapok, or even duck feathers. These were soft, yielding, almost luxurious to the touch. They bore poems stitched in gold and silver thread and scenes of mountains, cranes, and bamboo, symbols of balance, endurance, and peace. But comfort alone was never the end of it. The Chinese mind sought harmony. A pillow that pleased the body was good, but a pillow that also nurtured the spirit, that was perfection. In traditional Chinese medicine, sleep was a time when qi, or life energy, flowed freely through the body. A poorly made pillow, it was believed, could disturb that flow, causing headaches or bad dreams. So artisans chose their materials with intention. Jade was believed to absorb heat, keeping the body balanced. It symbolized immortality and purity. A jade pillow was said to preserve youth, a precious gift to emperors and nobles. Porcelain, cool and smooth, represented clarity. It soothed the mind. Some believed that sleeping on porcelain brought calm dreams and sharp memory. It was, in essence, medicine disguised as beauty. Even bronze pillows existed, valued for their ability to draw away evil vapors. Each material was a conversation with nature, an invitation to balance the elements of wood, metal, earth, fire, and water within the sleeper. Rest was no longer a necessity. It had become an art form. In the Tang Dynasty, pillow production flourished. Workshops in Qizhou, Ding, and Yaozhou produced porcelain pillows so refined that collectors centuries later would still marvel at their grace. The surfaces were often inscribed with poetry, sometimes playful, sometimes spiritual. A popular verse found on a song pillow reads, "When the moonlight falls upon the bed and dreams drift like clouds, may the heart be still as water." Imagine reading that each night before sleep. It was not just decoration, it was a nightly ritual, a quiet conversation between the soul and the sky. Porcelain pillows were not filled like modern ones. They were hollow, allowing air to circulate and keep the head cool in summer. Some even had small holes or vents designed for airflow, a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of comfort. The cool touch of porcelain against the cheek, the faint fragrance of lotus oil from a nearby lamp, the rustle of silk sheets beneath the hand. It was a kind of peace that words can only half capture. For the scholar class, poets, calligraphers, monks, sleep was not an escape from life, but an extension of contemplation. They saw sleep as an art of balance, the moment when one's body released the world so that the spirit might commune with the Tao. Dreams were dialogues with the universe. Some philosophers even claimed that the pillow was a gateway between worlds. In Zhuangzi's famous parable, a man dreams he is a butterfly, and upon waking, wonders if he is truly a man who dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming he is a man. The line between sleep and waking had dissolved. Thus, the pillow, humble, silent, steady, became a companion in this metaphysical play. It was where transformation happened, where one could forget, remember, and begin again. But not all pillows were so refined. In the countryside, farmers and laborers made do with what they had. Bundles of straw, folded cloth, perhaps a bag of rice husks wrapped in hemp. And yet even these humble sleepers would sometimes tie a strip of embroidered cloth around their pillow, a small gesture of beauty, a hint of aspiration, because even the weary long for gentleness. In Buddhist temples, monks crafted their own hard headrests from wood or bamboo, believing that soft pillows led to indulgence and laziness. For them, discomfort was a teacher, reminding them to remain awake even within dreams. It's a fascinating contrast, isn't it? The same object, a pillow, seen by one person as comfort and by another as temptation, and yet both were seeking peace. As centuries passed, the pillow began to reflect the very essence of Chinese culture, its balance between practicality and poetry, its harmony between form and meaning. An emperor's chamber might hold silk cushions embroidered with dragons, while a poet's study held a cool porcelain block painted with bamboo leaves. Both served the same quiet wish, to make sleep sacred. Now imagine a small workshop during the Song era. The potter sits before his wheel, spinning clay between his fingers. He shapes the curve of a pillow, then paints it with cobalt blue glaze. He pauses, thinks for a moment, and inscribes 3 characters onto its surface. Anmengjen, the pillow of peaceful dreams. He smiles. He knows this pillow will outlast him, that long after his own body rests beneath the earth, someone will still lay their head upon his creation, seeking the same peace he once knew. In that moment, art and eternity become one. From the Tang and Song eras onward, China's innovation in pillow making rippled outward like a wave. Merchants carried them west, across the steppes, through Persia, into the Mediterranean world. They brought not only porcelain and silk, but the very idea that sleep could be beautiful, intentional, and healing. The pillow was now more than an object. It was a philosophy, a soft revolution. It whispered that comfort could be elegant, that rest could be sacred, that even in silence there was art. And this idea would soon reach another civilization, one obsessed with balance, beauty, and indulgence, the Greeks and Romans. But before we journey westward, let's linger here, just a little longer, and listen. Do you hear it? The gentle sound of the river, the flutter of silk curtains in the midnight breeze, the soft sigh of porcelain cooling under the moonlight. This is the sound of ancient China dreaming, a world that learned how to make even sleep into an art form. So as the night deepens and the lamp flickers low, remember this: every soft pillow we rest upon today, every downy cushion, every feathery cloud beneath our head, carries within it the echo of those first porcelain dreams, the whisper of silk, the philosophy of peace, the balance of heaven and earth, cradling us through the quiet hours. Sleep softly, China, for your dreams change the world. Chapter 4. Greek and Roman Comfort. Luxury for the few. As dawn's memory fades, we drift now, from the eastern lands of silk and porcelain toward the glowing marble of the West. Here, in the world of Greece and Rome, civilization dreamed anew, and for the first time, softness itself became an art form. The Greek notion of rest and reflection. When we think of ancient Greece, our minds fill with sunlit courtyards, columns white as bone, and the hum of philosophy carried on the breeze. But among these sacred spaces, the academies, the symposia, the homes of poets, there existed something quieter, the realm of repose. The Greeks called their pillow the proskephalion. It was modest, a cushion filled with wool, feathers, or soft reeds, wrapped in linen or leather. Yet within it lay a philosophy far deeper than comfort. To the Greeks, sleep was not a surrender. It was a return, a gentle voyage to the self. For how could the mind ascend toward wisdom if the body lay restless? In Athens, you might find a philosopher, perhaps a student of Plato, reclining beneath a fig tree. A cool breeze drifts from the sea. His scrolls lie scattered beside him. He closes his eyes, head resting on a folded cloth. He is not sleeping, not yet, but thinking. For the Greeks, thought and rest were kin. They believed that tranquility was essential to clarity. The stillness of body gave birth to the stillness of mind, and so the humble pillow became a partner in thought, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Imagine a night in Athens. A faint hum of lyres and laughter echoes from the symposium halls. Oil lamps flicker like fireflies along the marble streets. Inside, a group of friends reclines on cushioned couches, the famous klini. They sip wine sweetened with honey, exchanging verses of Sappho and stories of heroes. Between every laugh, every debate, they lean back upon their pillows and breathe. In that breath lies something timeless, a moment of peace within the noise of existence. Pillows of philosophy and poetry. The Greek poets spoke often of sleep. In their words, it was both a mystery and a mercy. Homer called it the twin of death. But unlike death, sleep was kind. It came softly, without judgment, wrapping the weary in its arms. Even the gods were said to rest. Hypnos, god of sleep, was often depicted as a young man with gentle wings at his temples. He carried poppies, the flowers of drowsiness, and touched the eyes of mortals with dreams. When Hypnos visited, even Zeus himself could not resist his calm. So, when Greeks placed their heads upon a pillow, they did more than seek rest. They welcomed a divine visitor. To sleep was to touch eternity. And perhaps that is why even the simplest pillow, stuffed with sheep's wool and bound in cloth, held such quiet significance. It was a vessel of stillness, a cradle for the soul. From Greece to Rome, the age of leisure. As centuries turned, Greek ideals flowed like wine into Roman cups. The Romans adored Greek culture, its art, its reason, its poise, and they borrowed freely from it. But in true Roman fashion, they made everything grander, including the pillow. The Roman cushion was called the cervicalia, a smaller pillow meant to support the neck. For the wealthy, it was an indulgence, filled with feathers from swans, ducks, or geese, stitched with golden thread, perfumed with oils of lavender and myrrh. Even the scent of rest was a mark of luxury. Picture a Roman villa at twilight. Marble halls echo with soft footsteps. Torches flicker, painting amber light across mosaic floors. In the cubiculum, the bedchamber, a noble reclines upon silken cushions, reading poetry by candlelight. Outside, fountains whisper. Inside, the air is thick with perfume and peace. For the Romans, the bed was not merely a place of sleep. It was a stage for conversation, for dreams, for pleasure. Rest itself became theatre. The triclinium and the art of reclining one. Of Rome's great contributions to comfort was the triclinium, the three-sided dining couch. Meals were never just meals. They were performances, rituals of connection. Guests reclined upon cushions as they dined, leaning on one elbow while servants brought platters of roasted meat, figs, and wine. Laughter filled the air. Music drifted from the atrium. Each guest had their own pillow to lean upon, both for support and elegance. Even conversation, it seemed, was meant to be comfortable. It was said that how one reclined revealed who one was. The softest cushions belonged to the highest born, the rougher ones to those further from power. Thus, even in leisure, society arranged itself in layers, one pillow at a time, the private side of Roman sleep. But away from feasts and spectacles, there existed another Rome, quieter, humbler, and perhaps truer. In the narrow alleys beyond the marble forums, in small insular apartments where families lived above shops, ordinary Romans rested upon simple woolen rolls. A mother tucks her child beneath a coarse blanket. The child's head rests on a folded tunic, their only pillow. Outside, the clatter of carts fades. Inside, there is peace. Even the poorest Roman shared the same need, to lift the head, to soften the world, to dream. Whether upon silk or straw, all hearts yearned for rest. And in the flickering shadows of oil lamps, that universal truth that sleep unites us glowed quietly beneath every roof. The servant's pillow. Let us return for a moment to a Roman kitchen at midnight. The banquet has ended. The laughter of nobles has dissolved into snores. A servant girl, perhaps 15, perhaps 50, sweeps the marble floor. Her hands are raw, her feet bare. She moves silently, careful not to wake those she serves. When at last the embers dim, she lowers herself beside the hearth. She folds her shawl beneath her head. That shawl, thin, worn, smelling faintly of smoke, is her pillow. She closes her eyes, feeling warmth on one cheek, cool air on the other. In that fragile moment, her sleep is no less sacred than the emperor's. For comfort is not measured by gold, but by the peace it brings. And so, history whispers its quiet secret. Even in the grandest of empires, the truest comfort belongs to the simple heart, sleep, and the soul. The Romans, like the Greeks before them, saw sleep as more than rest. It was healing. It was divine. Dreams were messages, glimpses from the gods, omens to be interpreted. Temples to Asclepius, god of medicine, even offered incubation chambers, where the sick would sleep upon sacred beds, hoping for visions of cure. Priests would interpret these dreams in the morning, prescribing herbs, prayers, or rituals. Thus the pillow, humble as it seemed, was part of a holy act, a threshold between waking and divine. It cradled the head not only in sleep, but in reverence. From tomb to eternity, even in death, the Romans carried their love of comfort. Archaeologists have uncovered burial couches where the dead were laid with small cushions beneath their heads, symbols of eternal rest. Sometimes the pillows were made of linen, stuffed with reeds. Sometimes they were carved in stone to imitate softness. It was a poetic illusion, the idea that even in eternity one might rest well. Perhaps the gods themselves reclined upon the clouds, their heads cushioned by the wind, the balance of pleasure and virtue. But as luxury grew, so too did criticism. Philosophers like Seneca warned that softness could weaken the soul. He wrote that the body that rests too easily grows restless in spirit. To him, simplicity was virtue, luxury, decay. And so, within Rome's marble halls, a quiet debate stirred. How soft should life be? Some Stoics slept on hard boards or straw mats to train discipline. Others argued that pleasure itself, if appreciated mindfully, was not corruption, but celebration. If you enjoy a pillow, one philosopher mused, then let it remind you of gratitude. It's strange, isn't it? Even 2,000 years ago, humanity wrestled with the same questions we do today. How much comfort is too much? The Night of Rome. Let us wander once more through ancient Rome at night. The city sleeps beneath a silver moon. Smoke curls from 1,000 chimneys. Dogs bark in the distance. The Tiber glimmers, reflecting stars that seem almost within reach. In the emperor's palace, silken pillows await a weary head. In the merchant's home, his wife fluffs a woolen one, whispering goodnight to the gods. In the servant's corner, a folded cloak cradles dreams of freedom. 3 lives, 3 pillows, 1 universal breath of rest. How tenderly history ties us together, from noble to peasant, from marble to straw. The fall of softness. But time, ever turning, is also a thief. When the Roman Empire crumbled, the comfort it had cultivated fell with it. Trade routes fractured. feather and silk became rarities. The great beds of marble and cedar gave way to rough planks and cold stone floors. For a time, the art of softness vanished into shadow. The world grew harsher, sleep shorter, nights colder. Yet even as darkness fell across Europe, as war, famine, and plague took their toll, something survived. That ancient, unyielding spark, the human longing for peace, for rest. And from the ashes of empire, that spark would one day glow again. But that is a story for another chapter, when we follow the pillow into the Middle Ages, through the chambers of queens and the cottages of peasants, and discover how softness returned, quietly, stubbornly, beautifully. For now, close your eyes, and remember, every pillow, no matter how humble, carries within it 1,000 years of dreams. Chapter 5. Medieval Europe, Straw, Wool, and Hard Days' Rest. The world has grown colder now. The marble of Rome has cracked, its echoes fading into the hush of distant centuries. In its place rise new shapes, stone towers, candlelit chapels, and fields stretching to misty horizons. It is the Middle Ages, a time of faith and famine, of kings and shepherds, of prayers whispered against endless toil, a time when dreams, both waking and sleeping, became the last refuge of comfort. And through it all, the pillow endured. A harder world, a softer hope. In this new world, comfort was rare. Most people lived close to the earth. Farmers, millers, carpenters, their lives bound to the rhythm of sunrise and rain. Cathedrals soared toward heaven, but homes sank into the soil. A medieval peasant's bed was simple. A frame of rough wood or woven ropes, a thin mattress stuffed with straw, reeds, or wool. And for the head, a pillow, or pelu from the Latin pulvinus, a bag of hay wrapped in coarse linen. It was not softness they sought, but survival. Still, that small cushion, however humble, carried meaning. It separated bone from board, earth from dream. It was a boundary, fragile, human, between exhaustion and peace. The peasant's night. Imagine a stonemason in the 12th century. His hands are cracked from lime and frost. His breath smells faintly of smoke and bread. He returns home beneath a sky the color of wet wool. Inside his cottage, the hearth glows faintly. His wife has laid out their shared bed, a wooden frame, a woolen blanket, and at its head, a small sack filled with straw. He lowers himself, groaning softly. The pillow crinkles beneath his cheek. It's rough, uneven, but it's his. For a brief moment, he lets go of the weight of stone, of noise, of hunger. He drifts. His sigh, quiet and human, is a kind of prayer, not to saints or kings, but to rest itself. For in a world of toil, that brief surrender between dusk and dawn was sacred. The labor of comfort. To make even a straw pillow required effort. The linen must be woven, the hay cut and dried, the seams stitched by hand. Each family tended their bedding as they did their crops, carefully, seasonally. In summer, the straw was changed to keep away pests. In winter, old cloth was patched and folded anew. Sometimes lavender or thyme was tucked inside to mask the smell of earth. It was a small luxury, a breath of sweetness in a world that smelled of sweat and soil. The peasant pillow was not beautiful. It was functional. But in its quiet service, night after night, it became something else. A witness to love, to grief, to life. Every crease in its cloth held the shape of its owner's dreams, the monastic rest. While peasants dreamed of harvest, monks dreamed of heaven. In monasteries across Europe, from the green hills of Ireland to the valleys of France, rest was discipline, Sleep was measured, not indulged. Monks rose before dawn to chant in cold chapels. They ate little, spoke less, and slept on hard wooden cots or bare boards. Some used wooden headrests, others no pillows at all. To them, softness was temptation, a luxury of the flesh. In the rule of St. Benedict, it was written, "Let each have a mat, a blanket, a pillow if necessary." If necessary, even mercy in that world was conditional, and yet within these stone walls, a different comfort was found, spiritual, not physical. Their rest came from faith, their peace from surrender. Still, even a monk, weary after hours of prayer, might fold his robe beneath his head, a small rebellion of softness, because no rule can silence the body's longing to be held. The castles of sleep beyond the abbeys stood castles, fortresses of stone and privilege. Inside, nobles reclined upon feather mattresses, their heads resting on cushions filled with down and wrapped in silk. Even in the dim torchlight, the fabric shimmered like moonlight on water. But these luxuries were rare. Inventories from the 13th and 14th century England mention pillows only in the chambers of lords and queens, often embroidered, perfumed, or covered in imported fabrics. A royal pillow was more than comfort. It was status. It was lineage stitched into linen. Gold thread might trace a family crest. Pearls might gleam at its corners. And yet, for all their splendor, even these pillows carried the same quiet purpose: to cradle the head in peace. The needle and the heart. Around the 14th century, something beautiful began to stir. Embroidery, once the art of the church and the elite, entered the language of love. Small pillows, hand-sewn and adorned with tender phrases, became tokens of affection. A knight departing for war might gift his beloved a pillow embroidered with the words, "I rest my heart on thee." Young brides stitched prayers into the seams of their marriage pillows, invocations for fertility, safety, and gentle dreams. Mothers, too, made pillows for their children, filling them with wool or soft flax, whispering blessings as they worked. Each stitch was an act of hope, each thread a promise. It was not silk that made these pillows precious, but sentiment. Even the humblest home might contain one such heirloom, a faded, frayed cushion that held the scent of generations. The pillow had become once again what it was in ancient China, a vessel of meaning, not just rest. The rest between battles. The Middle Ages were not kind. War shadowed every generation. Knights rode to crusades, peasants to revolt, kings to conquest. In tents and barracks, soldiers slept upon cloaks, helmets, or bare ground. But sometimes, when fortune allowed, they carried small travel pillows filled with rags or straw wrapped in worn fabric. Imagine a young archer on campaign in France. The night is cold. His breath fogs in the dark. He lays his head on a rolled-up tunic. The fabric smells of sweat, leather, and smoke, but beneath it, he finds warmth. He dreams of home, of his mother's hands, of quiet mornings before the war. That dream is his pillow. And in that dream lies the same truth that carried through millennia. Even amidst chaos, the human heart will find its way to rest. The candlelit bedchamber. Let us step into a medieval bedroom, perhaps that of a merchant's wife in 14th century Bruges. The room is narrow, its beams dark with smoke. A single candle flickers beside the bed, its flame reflected in a polished brass bowl of water. The sheets are linen, coarse but clean. She fluffs her pillow, a modest one, filled with wool. It has been patched 3 times, stitched in red thread. Her husband snores softly beside her. Outside, the bells toll midnight. She closes her eyes. Her thoughts drift to the market stalls, to her children, to the prayers she whispered that morning. And as the candle gutters, she feels gratitude. For warmth, for breath, for the simple mercy of lying down. Sometimes the most ordinary rest is the most divine. The pillow as chronicle. Every pillow, even the plainest, held stories. They witnessed births, illnesses, confessions, and love. They absorbed tears and laughter alike. When plague swept through Europe, black as night, swift as fire, people clutched their pillows in fear. They prayed into them, they died upon them. And when the living mourned, they kept those pillows close, as if holding a piece of what was lost. In those years, the pillow became both cradle and coffin, a place where the living and the dead met in quiet remembrance. And yet even then, new life always returned. Children were born, songs were sung, and new pillows were made. For humanity does not stop dreaming even in the face of despair. The sacredness of rest. By the late Middle Ages, comfort had slowly begun to spread. Textile production improved, trade brought softer materials. Goose feathers, once reserved for kings, began appearing in the homes of the wealthy. Wool-stuffed pillows became more common in towns. And so, little by little, softness returned to Europe. Not as extravagance, but as kindness. People began to see sleep itself as holy, a gift from God to weary souls. Even theologians wrote of dreams as divine messages, sent not to emperors, but to shepherds and children. To rest one's head was to trust, to surrender to the unknown, and wake renewed. The pillow, humble and steadfast, became a symbol of that trust. It was not only for the body, but for the heart. The candle and the cradle. In the final centuries of the Middle Ages, the image of rest softened further into domestic warmth. Artists began painting scenes of mothers and children, of bedrooms lit by candlelight, of angels watching over sleepers. And always there was the pillow, sometimes gilded, sometimes plain, but always near the face of peace. In every corner of Europe, from the frozen fjords of Norway to the vineyards of Tuscany, the act of laying one's head upon a cushion meant the same thing: safety. And perhaps that is why even the poorest villager, before blowing out the candle, might touch the fabric lightly, a gesture of thanks, not for wealth, not for ease, but for endurance. A night, across the ages, the world outside may have been brutal, filled with storms, wars, and hunger. But within the home, night was its own kingdom. The sound of the wind outside the window, the flicker of the fire, the rustle of straw beneath the linen, these were the lullabies of medieval life. And in every home, beneath roof and sky, one small pillow carried the same silent wish: that sleep might be gentle, that dreams might be kind, that morning might come. For most, the pillow was the only luxury they would ever know, and that made it sacred again, not in temples or tombs, but in the soft, flickering light of home. The last breath of the Middle Ages. As Europe stirred toward the Renaissance, toward art, curiosity, and rediscovery, even the pillow began to change once more. Feathers replaced straw, velvet replaced coarse cloth, and rest, once a necessity, became an expression of taste. But that is another story. For now, let us stay here a little longer, in the candlelight, where the hum of a mother's lullaby still lingers, and the pillow beneath her child's head still carries the scent of hay, wool, and hope. History, after all, is not built from marble and iron, but from soft things, like dreams and the places where we dare to rest them. Chapter 6. The Industrial Age, Cotton, Comfort, and the Common Home. The world was changing. The hum of looms replaced the whispers of fields, and the rhythm of the spinning wheel began to echo through entire cities. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the quiet craft of comfort, once made by hand, in silence, met the roaring engines of industry. This was the age when rest itself was redefined. Once, a pillow was a privilege. A carved stone in Mesopotamia, a silken treasure in China, a perfumed cushion in Rome. But now, it was becoming something else entirely. It was becoming common, and in that, it became beautiful. A new softness for everyone. Factories began to hum like giant mechanical hearts. In places like Manchester, Lowell, and Lyon, air thick with cotton lint shimmered in the light that streamed through tall windows. Rows of women and men worked side by side, some no older than 14, spinning, weaving, cutting, stitching. They did not know it, but they were creating the fabric of modern rest. The old rhythm of handcraft, the slow weaving of flax or wool by the firelight, was now replaced by the unending motion of the power loom. Cotton arrived in ships from Egypt, India, and the American South, packed tight in great bales. Machines teased it apart, cleaned it, spun it into thread, and wove it into cloth so quickly that the human hand could scarcely keep pace. For the first time in history, pillows were no longer rare treasures of noble homes. They were everywhere, humble, useful, soft, inside the working-class home. Imagine, if you will, a small home in northern England around the year 1850. Outside, the air smells faintly of coal smoke and rain. Inside, the home is warm, barely, but enough. A man comes through the door. His name could be Thomas, or Henry, or Jacob. It doesn't matter. He is a coal miner, his hands rough and blackened from the day. He removes his boots, sets them by the hearth, and exhales the kind of sigh that only hard work can summon. His wife, Mary, has spent the afternoon washing linens in the cold water from the well. She shakes them dry by the window, letting the damp air kiss them clean. On the narrow bed, a pair of cotton pillows wait, rough by our standards, but soft to him. He lies down, still hearing the echo of pickaxes in his head. The pillow smells of soap and dust, maybe even a faint trace of lavender from the garden. He presses his cheek into it, and for the first time all day, the world stops moving. That pillow is not fine or ornate. It's stitched by hand from a remnant of ticking cloth, striped blue and white, stuffed with feathers saved from old blankets. But it holds something precious: the right to rest. The industrial age did not give comfort freely, but it made it possible. And sometimes that's enough. The Pillow Factory. Let's step inside a pillow factory. The year is 1887. The place, Lowell, Massachusetts. The sound is constant: the clatter of sewing machines, the hiss of steam, the murmur of tired voices. Long tables stretch down the hall, covered in bolts of fabric. Women sit with needles flashing between their fingers. Each pillowcase is cut, stitched, filled, weighed, pressed, and labeled. One woman, Ellen, hums quietly as she works. Her fingers ache, but her movements are steady. She grew up on a farm where pillows were stuffed with straw, itchy, uneven. Now she helps make thousands every week, each one softer than the last. She doesn't earn much, but she smiles sometimes, imagining someone far away, maybe a mother, a child, a weary man, laying their head on a pillow she's made. It's a small comfort, but it's hers. Even in industry, the human touch lingered. No matter how loud the machines, there was still gentleness in the act of creating rest. The rise of feathers and cotton. The most popular fillings of the 19th century were feathers and down, particularly from geese and ducks. Feather pillows were status symbols in medieval Europe, but by the industrial age, they became accessible. Advertisements began to appear in city newspapers. Finest feather pillows, guaranteed fresh, clean, and light as air. Cotton cushions for healthy sleep. No dust, no odor. The words were simple, but they meant something profound. That comfort was no longer a dream, but a commodity. For the first time, people began to talk about sleep quality. It wasn't just about having a bed, it was about how deeply one could rest. Doctors, too, began writing about the benefits of good sleep. Victorian health manuals advised families to keep one's head cool and elevated and warned against overfilled or musty pillows. There were even experiments in orthopedic shapes, pillows designed to support the spine or neck, precursors to what we call ergonomic design today. And yet, amid all this progress, there was a certain poetry in the simplicity. A clean pillow, a cotton sheet, a quiet room. Sometimes that's all the heart ever needed, the price of progress. But comfort in the industrial age came with a cost. Behind the softness of cotton lay the rough truth of labor. In the American South, enslaved people and later sharecroppers worked endless hours to harvest the cotton that fed the mills. In England and France, factory workers breathed lint-filled air that scarred their lungs. Children ran barefoot through spinning rooms, cleaning gears too dangerous for adults to reach. The softness of the modern pillow was born from a world that was for many anything but soft. And yet, humanity's longing for rest persisted. The pillow, humble and wordless, absorbed it all. The pain, the fatigue, the quiet dreams of a better life. When a worker laid their head down at night, that simple square of fabric became a sanctuary, a refuge from smoke and noise, from fear and debt. It was the one place where the body remembered peace. Rest as revolution. Something subtle began to happen in this age of machines. The more people worked, the more they began to crave rest. Not just as recovery, but as resistance. To close one's eyes became a quiet act of rebellion. To dream, an assertion of humanity. In letters and journals from the 19th century, workers often described their pillows with tenderness. One English seamstress wrote, "My pillow is my dearest friend. It knows all my tears, and it asks for nothing." That sentence could have been written by anyone, in any age. Because beneath all progress, there lies a single truth. We build the world by day, so we may rest in it by night. By the late 1800s, rest had begun to evolve into something even greater, a philosophy. Writers, poets, and thinkers began to see the bedroom not as a place of laziness, but as a sanctuary for the soul. Dreams in print and poetry. The Victorians were, in many ways, dreamers. They filled their homes with curtains, lace, and patterns, but also with imagination. They saw sleep not merely as a biological need, but as a state of grace. In poems and diaries, pillows became metaphors for safety, innocence, and escape. To rest was to remember childhood, to retreat from the noise of the city, to find the self again. Some literary salons even debated the meaning of dreams. whether they were glimpses into heaven or echoes of the subconscious mind. In that context, the pillow became almost sacred once more. Just as the Egyptians placed them in tombs, Victorians placed them in their hearts, reminders that comfort, however brief, connects us to something eternal. The domestic ideal by the dawn of the 20th century, the idea of the home itself had changed. Industrial work was public, loud, mechanical. Home was private, quiet, human. And at the center of every home was a bed. Magazines like Good Housekeeping and the Ladies' Home Journal began to publish illustrations of serene bedrooms filled with sunlight and crisp linens. Women were encouraged to create restful spaces, to make softness not a luxury, but a virtue. In those pages, the pillow became a symbol of care. It represented the invisible labor of love, the shaking of feathers, the mending of seams, the smoothing of wrinkles before nightfall. Every thread, every stitch carried the memory of a hand. It was a small, unspoken art, the art of making peace at the end of a long day. The rhythm of sleep, the industrial age, changed not only how we slept, but when. Before electricity, humans rose with the sun and slept in two phases, a first sleep and a second sleep. But gas lamps and later electric bulbs stretched the day. Night became negotiable. Factories ran later. Workers stayed awake longer. The city glowed after dusk, and for the first time, sleep had to be defended. Doctors warned of urban exhaustion. Philosophers spoke of rest deprivation, and people began to treasure their pillows as sanctuaries from the unrelenting pace of modernity. Every night, the world still turned, but for a few hours, one could stop. Comfort for the common home. By the turn of the century, nearly every household in Europe and America owned pillows, not one, but several. They came in all sizes, square, rectangular, cylindrical, stuffed with cotton, wool, down, or new synthetic fibers. The humble pillow had become universal, a quiet symbol of equality. For millennia, the rich and the divine had rested their heads on carved stone, silk, or gold. Now, the working family could do the same. In their own way, every home had its softness, every bed had its dream. Closing reflections. The industrial age gave humanity many things: speed, light, machines, and motion. But perhaps its gentlest gift was the democratization of comfort. From the soot of factories rose a new ideal, that everyone, no matter how tired, deserved to rest their head in softness. When the miner closed his eyes, when the seamstress set down her needle, when the mother whispered good night, the pillow became the thread that bound their dreams together. The story of the pillow in this era is the story of us, our need for comfort in a world that never stops moving, our desire to make peace in the noise, our quiet promise to ourselves that after every long day, there will always be softness waiting. And so the pillow endured, through war and peace, through smoke and silence, through industry and invention. It waited faithfully for the next dreamer to rest their head. And as the night deepened, humanity slept, finally, together. Chapter 7. Modern Pillows, Foam, Feathers, and the Science of Sleep. There is something profoundly tender about the modern pillow. A small, familiar object, yet a quiet revolution in human comfort. It cradles not only our heads, but also centuries of experimentation, innovation, and yearning for perfect rest. The 20th century did not simply bring new fabrics or fillings. It brought new philosophies of sleep itself. and the belief that the simple act of laying one's head could be improved by science, design, and love. 1. Feathers give way to chemistry. In the early 1900s, homes still smelled faintly of cotton, ticking and goose down. Feather pillows, passed down, restuffed and mended, were both precious and practical. Each pillow carried the ghost of warmth from generations before. But then came the world of chemistry, bright, curious, and restless. Inventors learned to spin nylon and polyester, materials that never wilted, never molded. For the first time, pillows could be machine-washed, reshaped, and mass-produced. Factories hummed like mechanical lullabies. Women stitched synthetic casings by the hundreds, while machines filled them with soft, buoyant fibers. Feather pillows, once a symbol of luxury, now shared space on store shelves with polyfilled dreams, cheaper, lighter, uniform. And yet, something gentle persisted. People still fluffed, hugged, and pressed their faces into these new creations, discovering that rest, no matter the material, still carried magic. 3. Space foam and the dream of weightlessness. Then came the stars, the 1960s, an age of rockets, satellites, and ambition. NASA engineers sought materials that could absorb immense pressure while remaining soft to the touch. From that pursuit came viscoelastic polyurethane, better known as memory foam. At first, it was meant for astronaut seats, to cushion them against the brutal force of liftoff. But like so many cosmic inventions, it descended gently back to Earth. In the quiet suburbia of the late 20th century, memory foam found a new purpose. It molded not to machines, but to the human head. It remembered your shape, your pressure, your heat, as though whispering, "I know you. I'll hold you just right." Suddenly, sleep became data. Scientists spoke of pressure distribution, spinal curvature, temperature regulation. Advertisements echoed with promises of deeper rest, better posture, fewer dreams interrupted by discomfort. Yet beneath all the diagrams and buzzwords, the same ancient impulse remained, that yearning for softness, for surrender, for a safe place to drift away. 4. The pillow as medicine. By the 1980s and 1990s, pillows entered hospitals, clinics, and therapy rooms not as accessories, but as tools. Orthopedic pillows curved like crescent moons. Neck pillows offered gentle resistance. There were wedges for breathing, rolls for posture, and even water-filled cushions that adjusted to every movement. Sleep itself was being prescribed, 8 hours at least. Doctors spoke of REM deprivation, cortisol levels, serotonin release. The world was remembering how to rest. Even psychologists began to study the symbolic power of the pillow, how we clutch it in sadness, whisper into it in secret, hide our tears within its folds. It became a silent companion, absorbing the emotions we could not voice. And still, somewhere beyond all the studies, there was the simple act of a parent fluffing a child's pillow. The eternal gesture of comfort. 5. The night of 1975. Imagine, if you will, a quiet suburban bedroom in 1975. A mother tucks her son beneath a quilt patterned with faded stars. The glow of a small nightlight paints the wallpaper gold. Outside, the world hums. Cars on the highway, a distant train. But here, in this room, time seems to pause. She lifts his pillow, soft, slightly lumpy, and fluffs it with the tenderness of ritual. Her mother did this. Her grandmother too. Each generation passing down the knowledge of how to cradle a head, how to promise, "You're safe now." The pillow may be new, made of polyester, not goose down, but the love inside it is ancient. It is humanity's quiet thread, stretching across millennia, connecting straw mats to space foam, reed bundles to luxury goose feathers. 6. The eco-awakening. Then came the new millennium, and with it, a new consciousness. Suddenly, softness alone was not enough. People began to ask, what is this made of? Where does it go when I'm done? Sustainability entered the bedroom. Designers experimented with bamboo fiber, buckwheat hulls, natural latex, and recycled memory foam. Some pillows smelled faintly of the earth, green, fresh, grounding. The planet itself had become a sleeper in need of rest. Even luxury brands adjusted their language. Instead of indulgence, they spoke of balance, of breathable cotton, of ethical down, of harmony between body and world. Hotels introduced pillow menus, allowing guests to choose between soft, firm, hypoallergenic, cooling. For the first time, rest became a form of personalization, a dialogue between sleeper and pillow, between human and dream. 7. The digital storm and the return to stillness. But then light invaded the night. Screens, small, glowing, relentless, entered our bedrooms. The same tools that connected us began to steal our silence. Blue light tricked our eyes into thinking it was day. The brain forgot how to dim itself. We lost the art of the dark. And so began a counter-revolution. Podcasts whispered bedtime stories. Apps taught deep breathing. Gentle narrators, voices like warm milk, reminded millions to close their eyes. In the soft chorus of this digital lullaby, the calm storyteller found its place among countless voices seeking to bring peace back to the sleepless, to remind us that behind every technological miracle, we still crave one simple thing: a soft place to rest our head. 8. The science of surrender. Modern sleep research now speaks in numbers: delta waves, melatonin cycles, heart rate variability. But if you listen closely, beneath the graphs and devices, there's something ancient humming there. Every sleep scientist, in their own way, studies not only the mind, but the art of letting go. The pillow, humble as it is, has become a symbol of surrender. When we rest our heads, we are saying, I trust the world enough to dream. Perhaps that is why, even in the 21st century, with all our precision foam, ergonomic curves, and sleep trackers, we still sometimes reach for the same old, well-worn pillow, the one that remembers our face, the one that smells faintly of home. 9. Epilogue, the whisper, beneath the linen. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the lineage of every pillow that ever was, from straw mats by ancient fires, to goose down in candlelit chambers, to foam beneath fluorescent skies. All of them share one purpose: to cradle the dreamer. And in that cradle lives the quiet promise of humanity, that rest is sacred. So when you lie down tonight and your pillow sighs beneath you, know that you are held by more than fabric and fiber. You are held by time, by love, by the tender patience of countless hands who shaped comfort out of air and hope. Sleep now. You are part of the same story, the long, slow invention of peace, the invention of the pillow. Chapter 8. Reflections. The universal search for rest. So here we are. Thousands of years after a Sumerian noble first rested his head on stone. We've traveled from Mesopotamian temples to Egyptian tombs, Chinese gardens to Roman villas, from medieval cottages to modern apartments filled with memory foam and dreams of peace. And through it all, one truth remains. The pillow has always been a reflection of who we are. When we were practical, it was stone. When we were spiritual, it was sacred. When we became gentle, it became soft. And when the world grew loud, it became our silence. In every era, the pillow has whispered the same question. How do you find your rest? Because rest is not just sleep. It's trust. It's surrender. It's the brief moment when we believe, despite everything, that the world will hold us safely until morning. Think of all the dreams born upon pillows. Of a farmer in ancient China dreaming of rain. Of a Roman poet drifting through lines of verse. Of a mother in medieval France watching her child breathe softly through the night. Perhaps that's the secret of the pillow. It reminds us that across all our differences, we share the same need to rest, to feel comforted, to let go. Tonight, as you close your eyes, remember, your pillow is a fragment of history, a continuation of an ancient wish. Every stitch, every feather, every curve carries the memory of those who sought peace before you. And somewhere, beyond time, those first dreamers, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the mothers, the miners, are all sleeping still. Their dreams ripple quietly through ours, connecting us like threads in the fabric of sleep. So, as your head sinks softly into the pillow, listen to the silence that has traveled through history to find you. Because rest, gentle, simple, human rest, is the oldest invention of all. Good night.